How much should you sacrifice for somebody who isn't willing to do the same for you? That's the heart of this week's Hello Hayes letter, written by somebody who has given a lot to her relationship and is starting to wonder if it's being returned. I'm going to read you the letter now, and then we'll unpack it together in real time. Hello Hayes. My boyfriend of less than 2 years is in his 4th year of medical school and going through the residency match process, and I'm starting to question his commitment to our relationship. For context, while the match algorithm prioritizes the med student's preferences, in the end, you're at the mercy of the process, and you must go where you are placed. We met while we were both living in Boston. I was working a former job, and he was in school. I'm extremely career-focused and knew I needed to explore other opportunities to reach my full potential. The best opportunities for my career are in New York City, and this is also where all of my best friends from college live. Last year, I decided to apply to some aspirational jobs, knowing that my boyfriend would be matching this year, and there's a good chance he'll end up in New York City. I got the job I wanted, and he supported me taking it. He was so proud of me. Fast forward to now. My boyfriend has performed exceptionally well in the match process. His top 2 choices are in New York City and Boston, and he has interviews at both. As for our relationship, I want to marry him, and we are so in love. But dating him has not been easy because of his demanding career path. I've always accepted that medicine is his #1 priority. I'm constantly bending to accommodate his schedule, and I've traveled to see him quadruple the amount of times he's come to visit me. I've invested an incredible amount of time in his family and friends because he has limited time to spend with the people he loves, and I never complain or guilt him for needing to work nights and cancel plans due to medicine. Long distance has been worth it, Hayes, but his residency is 6 years long, and I desperately want to be in the same city again. We've been discussing his match rank list, and he's leaning towards ranking the program in Boston first. Why? Because he likes it more, and he says it has a better quality of life. If he matches in Boston, the next 6 years will be a continuation of me spending a lot of money to see him, paying double rent, and constantly fielding the question of when am I going to move for him and leave my amazing job and wonderful friends. We're 26 and 28, and we'll be 33 and 35 by the time his residency is over. No matter where he is, whether it's New York or Boston, I will still be making sacrifices. I'll be spending plenty of nights alone and attending events meant for couples without him. I'll be picking up most of the housework and cooking since he'll be at the hospital. I'll be giving up holidays with him while he works. Dating someone in the medical field is unconventional and full of compromise. You have to accept that you'll give energy without the expectation of receiving anything in return. I've excitedly accepted all of these things because to me, he's worth it. Still, I will be hurt and saddened if he decides to rank the program in Boston first. Even if he ranks Boston first and ends up in New York, it would be difficult for me to accept that he placed his own preferences above my career, our finances, and my happiness. I just can't say that wherever he goes, I'm 100% there without knowing that he tried his best to go where I am and where I want to be. Please help, Hayes. Am I being selfish and unrealistic? Is this a sign that he's not willing to sacrifice as much as I am? How do I express how I'm feeling towards him without being controlling or giving an ultimatum? I don't want to break up because of this, but I know that I will not be okay if he makes a conscious choice that is only in his best interest and not mine. Yours, at the mercy of the match. Gosh, my heart hurts in this situation, reading about the situation, thinking about it, feeling it. I think that there's a point in my life, maybe there was a point where I would have heard this story and thought the answer was kind of simple. Either you choose each other and you include the other person in your decisions 100% of the time. You make choices together as a couple, or like you're not a couple, you're not acting as a couple. And I'm curious as we talk through this now, if that perspective will change by the end of this conversation. Because I do think it is more complicated, and I think that the medicine matching process, I have friends who have been through it. I have friends whose relationships have ended as a result of exactly this, for better, I think, not for worse. But I know that it's complicated. I guess to start, I think everything you're feeling is very valid. It is very valid in an adult relationship with the person you want to marry, somebody you want to spend your life with. It's valid, understandable, even perhaps necessary to feel like you are included in the decision-making process. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable to look at someone that you want to spend your life with and to say, hey, like, pick me, choose me. What's the Notebook line? Want me, love me. Is that from the Notebook? I think it was. I was just talking about, I've been like big in Notebook land. Brian and I had we watched like hours of Ryan Gosling YouTube shorts and clips the other day. Whatever, I'm not going to go down that tangent. But you want the person that you love to love you in the same way back. And right now, it does appear that your boyfriend, at least in the telling of the story, your boyfriend is picking convenience, career opportunity over being in person with you. I don't think it necessarily means in his mind that he's picking those things over you, because in his mind, he might think that he has you no matter what. In his mind, the long distance might be totally doable, and it's not a risk to him that he might lose you if he doesn't consider being with you in person. And maybe that's something you need to say to him directly, which we'll get to. So it's not as simple to say that he's not choosing you, because in his mind, he might still be choosing you. But I see how from your perspective, you're thinking like, why would he not want to be where I am? Why would he not want to be where I am? I can imagine the pain when he said to you that he wants to rank Boston first because, how did you phrase it? What did you say in the letter? Because he likes it more and it has a better quality of life. Reading that part in your letter, I can so imagine myself in your shoes where, when we're having a heartfelt, kind of painful conversation with the person we love about a conflict, there's like the conversation that we're having out loud, and then there's the conversation that we're having alone in our head. Like when someone says something that really kind of punctures a wound that has already existed within you, or says something that triggers your shame or your disappointment. Like we all hold shame and disappointment and fear and all of that deep within us. And I think when we have these vulnerable conversations with people who we expect to know us better than we know ourselves, if they say something that pinches at that, it's like this whole other conversation starts happening in our brain, right? And it's like, how could he fucking just say that? How could he say that about me? Doesn't he know how hurtful that is? He's going to rank Boston because he likes it more and it has a better quality of life, but I'm not there. I'm not there. How could he like it more if I'm not there? How could it have a better quality of life if me, his girlfriend, does he not want me to be his wife? Does he not want me in that way? I'm like, my heart rate is getting picked up even just thinking about it. Because I've been on the other end of that conversation in one shape or form. And I think you can still end up having conversations like that even when a relationship is working. There are times when I'm having a conversation with Brian and we're not seeing eye to eye, and because I'm feeling insecure or vulnerable about something, he could say something and I interpret it in because of the hurt that I'm holding inside of me that he can't see, I might interpret something he says in the most personal way. And sometimes that's warranted. Sometimes he says the wrong thing, and sometimes I'm making something out of nothing. So that's something to consider here. That's something to consider here. I'm not saying you're making something out of nothing, but in this process, I think you're holding a lot of, I can imagine that you're having so many conversations inside your own head. We have to remain aware of how, the other person is not in our head with us. They're not aware of the hours and hours and hours that you've spent mulling this over in your brain and all the personal conversations you've had. So sometimes we can we can jump to conclusions in our conversations with them because we have all of this, we've written all these drafts in our mind that they don't have access to. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if any of that was just tracking, but if you're tracking with me, nod. If you're tracking me, nod. One kind of thing that is interesting to me in your letter, or that stands out to me, is this idea of being career oriented. It appears to me that you both are career driven. And at one point when I was reading this, I did have the thought of mercy of the match. Didn't you also choose your career over your relationship? Couldn't you make that argument? You were in Boston where your boyfriend is, and you decided that you wanted to live near your friends and that you wanted to pursue this career opportunity. Couldn't you say that you also are career motivated? And I think you could say that. Your critics might say that. Your boyfriend might say that, should you, tell him that he's choosing his career over you. But the more I think about it, the more I think that perhaps you were actually protecting yourself. Perhaps your instincts were showing you that you've grown out of Boston, and perhaps the person who you were staying in Boston for isn't actually considering you the way you deserve to be considered. And perhaps your pull to New York isn't is about, yes, you know your worth and you are passionate about your career and your ambition and you want to make more money and you want to live your life with your friends and be surrounded by friends, which is so important. Maybe it was also like kind of some higher version of your higher self, like pulling you there, because sometimes I think that, let's say your relationship is not meant to work out, or it's not going to work out. And, that might feel like a knife, and I apologize for that, but let's just say that. Let's say it's not going to work out. It wasn't going to work out now or later. Like this matching process might be the tip of the iceberg that breaks it off. But even if it wasn't this, even if you stayed in Boston, something else, it would have happened later. And maybe a part of you knew that. Maybe there's a part of you that knew this, that felt this, and was taking the brave, courageous steps to protect yourself. So that's kind of where I've landed on the, like, well, you moved, so why is it a problem that he did? Because I was thinking about that argument, and it's kind of a stupid fucking argument. I do think it's a stupid argument. And I think it's a stupid argument in this case, but it's a stupid argument because why is it a stupid argument? Where was I going with that? Because whenever you respond to somebody's hurt in your relationship by pointing out the ways that they've done the same thing to you, that typically is like a defense mechanism that never lets us get to the root of the issue. And the root of the issue, to me, really, love, doesn't sound like it's about this match process necessarily. It sounds to me like you're not sure you want to make these sacrifices. Not because you don't love him, but because you're not sure that sacrifices are going to be made for you too. And look, it might be unreasonable to ask him to sacrifice the school he wants to go to. It might be unreasonable, it might not be unreasonable. But the way that I think you'd feel differently if in other ways you felt like he was making sacrifices too. And nobody can tell you, there's no checklist of like, these are the sacrifices you should make for each other in order for a relationship to feel equitable. That has to be decided between the two of you. And the way that you've, rattled off the things that you've done for him, you've listed them all off, I'm feeling some resentment there. And resentment, I sort of think resentment has become this like dirty word. Like if you resent someone for something, like, like you must be selfish and you must not care about them. And like, maybe this is my own fears of resentment in relationships that's coming through here. But like, I want to leave some room in this conversation for resentment to be like a really understandable effect of not being honest and not feeling seen. And resentment does not need to be the end. I think in my brain, like once resentment's there, you're fucked. And that might be like child of divorce, like that might be some of that coming through. Like I think I used to think of, if resentment enters the chat, there is no recovering from that. And I don't think that's true. I think you can work through resentment. But I don't know if you can work through resentment with somebody who isn't willing to make sacrifices for you too. And I think the way you are framing your situation right now, it's like in your head, the sacrifice he needs to make to prove to you that he's committed is ranking New York first. And this is where I'm not sure. I don't know. This is where I was going to say, like, this is where I don't know what your next step is. But I actually think this is where the next step, like, really needs to be you being honest with yourself first about, like, do you feel like this relationship, do you feel seen in this relationship? Do you feel like everything you've done to keep it afloat is valued and reciprocated in some way? Not reciprocated in the same way, but reciprocated in some way. Because I kind of have a feeling that relationships are never solved by doing only one thing. And if in your mind, in any relationship in your life, if it's, well, all they need to do is this one fucking thing and then all of our problems will go away, I think that's usually a delusion we're telling ourselves. Very similar to, I'll be happy when I make a lot of money. I'll be happy when I get the new job. I'll be happy when my best friend's wedding is finally over, because then she'll stop being such a bridezilla bitch. No, usually there's something more. Usually there's something deeper. And these relationship problems don't really ever go away when one person just does one thing. And the feelings you're describing of the sacrifices you're making and not feeling like you're getting much in return other than the promise, maybe the potential promise of the relationship feeling good and fulfilling one day. I don't think these feelings are going to go away just if he chooses New York. And you certainly won't feel better if he's choosing New York because you asked him to. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think you should be honest. I do think that you should have a conversation with your boyfriend about what you're feeling. To your point, let me go look to your questions. I want to be clear. When I said, I think I used the phrase that you were rattling off the sacrifices you've made, I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I do think when you're planning a life with someone, it's normal and necessary to think about what this life with them will look like. I do sort of like, and people who are married to or in long-term relationships with doctors and they are not a doctor, like chime in the comments what you think about this. I do sometimes like raise an eyebrow a little bit whenever someone's like, I'm just married to a doctor. That just means I'm going to be lonely. It just means I'm going to have to do everything. It just means XYZ. Like, does it really mean that? Like, I also know doctors who are married to non-doctors who do seem to share the load in their own way. Yes, there are sacrifices that are made, but I do sort of raise an eyebrow when people are like, this is just what being married to a doctor is like. And maybe it is, but if you don't like that, you don't need to do it. Like, you don't need to just participate in what it's like to be married to a doctor, because that's the reality. That's just who I fell in love with if that life does not feel good for you. So I want to challenge that a little bit. But I think it's great. I think it's great too that you are thinking through some of these realities. I think it's great that you're thinking through these realities. I want to push you to decide, like, are these actually your realities? Are these the realities that he has said to you? Like, has he said, like, hey, babe, this is what life's going to be like with me. You're going to be cooking more. You're going to have to go to events without me. Like, where has this reality that you've dreamed up, like, is it a dream or is it reality? Where did it come from? Where did this reality come from for you? I don't think you're wrong to consider it. I think we absolutely, when we're picking someone, should consider what is my life going to be like with this person, and do I actually like it? Which is what I think you're doing, and which is what I think some of those thoughts are making you uncomfortable, because you're realizing that, hey, maybe I don't want this. Okay, but to your questions. Is this a sign that he's not willing to sacrifice as much as I am? The truth to that is maybe. I don't know how your boyfriend thinks. As I said in the beginning, he very well might think that he is considering you because you're already doing Boston and New York, and he's not ranking Oklahoma, and your relationship will just continue exactly as it is. And what's the problem? Now, that might raise some emotional intelligence issues that he hasn't asked you your opinion, or he hasn't asked you what long distance has felt like. Speaking up, has he asked you? Like, have you made talking about the challenges you're feeling, what it's like being in long distance, like, is that a regular part of your relationship, talking about it? I know that can be kind of awkward and totally makes sense if it's not part of it. I avoid talking about hard things too. I think everybody wants to avoid having hard conversations with the people we love because it's easier just to push them away and pretend like everything's hunky-dory. And then big decisions come up, and this is why conflict often arises at these kind of like different turning points in life, milestones, if you will. Because we've avoided talking about hard stuff, but then the milestones happen, the exciting things, they are exciting, but they push us into this uncomfortable territory where we're suddenly forced to have the conversations, and God, it's hard. It does, I think, gosh, it's hard. Because I'm also imagining myself, and like at the point that I'm at in my marriage, and even at the very beginning of my marriage, we did eventually get to a point where we wouldn't be making decisions without considering the other. But even if maybe if I think about this, like when I was wanting to quit my full-time job and start doing consulting work as income on the side while I started Hello Hayes, that did involve Like, I did have to consider Brian in that decision because we are a partnership. But I can't really imagine a world where he would say to me, where I would consider him to the point that I gave up on my dream. I would consider him to the point where I would do what I needed to for our relationship while also making my dream come true. And that maybe looked like at the time, like when I first did all of that, there was a part of me when I was first wanting to quit my job and be a writer full time. There was a part of me that was like, I hope there's like a secret world where he's like, yeah, babe, I got you. Don't worry about it. Money's no issue. And that wasn't the conversation we had. But there was like that part of me that was sort of daydreaming about what it would be like if that was the case. And it wasn't, because that wasn't my reality. And I knew that. It was just sort of like a fairy tale type scenario. Where was I going with this? Where was I going with that? I think I was just trying to say, what he ended up saying to me is, we can do this, but we need to come up with a plan. And then that's how we took my dream. That's how we made the thing I wanted for my career happen without just disregarding my partner's perspective and our reality. So in your shoes, it's like, if you are a partnership and you are a team, I think you would apply that same framework to the decision of, where do we live? Where are you going to match? Because we are a we. And maybe it's we both do care about our careers. Boston really is the better program. Both of us see that. So how are both of us going to make this work? And maybe that's the missing piece, that right now you're not feeling the how are both of us going to make this work. You're only seeing how you're going to have to make it work. And the key to staying together is probably, how are both of us going to make this work? And that's what I would be looking for when I have a conversation with him about my feelings. I'd be looking for him to show that he's thought about this. Like, has he considered me at all? And now that he's aware of the feelings, if he's somehow not aware of them, what is he willing to do to make this work? What hard conversations is he willing to have with me? Stuff like that. So how do you express what you're feeling without being controlling or giving an ultimatum? I mean, first step though, love, like, you got to decide truly what you feel is right. Because an ultimatum would be, if you don't put New York first, I don't know if I can be in this relationship. That is an ultimatum. And I think that sometimes, like, what makes something an ultimatum versus just like a boundary? There's definitely like a good and firm rule there. But I think couples deal with this all the time when one person wants to move somewhere and the other doesn't. Because, like, is it an ultimatum or is it a truth? I think it is an ultimatum if you say, you got to pick New York or we're breaking up, because I don't think it's actually about that. I think this is about a feeling of equity in your relationship and a feeling of commitment. And you not feeling like he gives as much as you do, generally. But it's easier to latch on to this very big, specific thing. So I would first spend some time really thinking about what it is you want. And let's say you realize it is more about a general feeling of, like, him contributing to the relationship, talking about your future, considering you in his future. Because some of that is, like, not, some of this is not so tangible. Like, sometimes you just get the sense that the person that you've been imagining a life with is not imagining a life with you. And it might not even be that they don't picture you in it. They just don't picture their future at all. Your boyfriend might only have eyes for his medical career. He might only have eyes for his career in front of him. That doesn't mean he doesn't see you in it, but it means that he doesn't have as much space in his heart as you do right now. And that could be a reason to break up. It very well could. Now, you are young. You are 26. Like, I don't want to say you're still young. Like, I got married at 27. I look back and think that that's really young. So you're young in that you are in no rush, but I know you are also old enough to know what you want. I'm not really answering your question so specifically of how to express it, but I think the first step is to figure out what your truth is. Do you want to continue this relationship? And if the answer is yes, but you're just feeling you're just feeling like you need more and you're saddened by this, you can say, I want to talk about this match process and I'm having a lot of complicated feelings about it. I want to talk about these complicated feelings and I want to work through this together. And I want us to give each other chances to redo if one of us starts talking and we're saying things we don't mean. I think like the redo button is a great thing in these conversations because you might say something that borderlines being really accusatory or ultimatum-y, and then you kind of reel it back. Creating space for big emotions in these conversations is really important. And saying, I'm noticing that I'm feeling really hurt that you don't want to be in New York. It feels like you're picking Boston over me. Can you help me understand your thought process? Sometimes we just have to, it can be helpful sometimes to be like, I'm interpreting what you're doing as this. When you say that you like Boston more and it has a better quality of life, I feel really confused by that because I live in New York. So how could that be true if we're not together? Can you help me understand what you meant, what you mean? And then give him space to explain. It might be hard. He might not be able to do it. He might do it and you might not like his answer. But I think that that's where you start. I don't think you say, if you choose Boston, we're breaking up. I think it just becomes, he's going to do what he's going to do after you have this conversation, and then you do what you do. I don't think you need to warn him. I don't think you need to tell him what you're going to do. That should be evident just in the emotional, honest conversation that you're going to have. Your last line of this letter, man. I know that I will not be okay if he makes a conscious choice that is only in his best interest and not mine. And you know what? I think you have every fucking right to feel that way. That isn't a person probably that you want to marry, that only makes choices for them and not for you. Because, listen, life is going to be long. And marriage is fun and sexy, but like it's also about, and I even need to, I need to hear this too sometimes, like marriage and building a family if you want a family and having a family with just the two of you and whatever your definition of family is. It is not just about choosing you. It is about choosing the we. And you're smart to know that. You're smart to feel that. You're smart to pay attention to your instincts that are telling you when something doesn't feel that way. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think it's very brave. I think it's very brave to even allow yourself to potentially change your mind about somebody who you thought was going to be your person. I'll tell you that there were other people at one point in life that I thought I was going to marry. And I'm really fucking glad that I changed my mind and I allowed myself to realize that's not the kind of marriage I want. When I look into my future and I see what life could be like, no, thank you. So this could be that moment for you. This could be the moment that saves your life. It could be the moment that saves your life. And I love that you're living in New York now with your friends. Make sure to keep spending time with your friends and letting them support you through this. At the mercy of the match, I think that this match process is going to end up being one of the best things to ever happen to you in your 20s and beyond. I love you. Thank you for writing. I love you and thank you for writing. Please keep me posted. Keep us posted. Keep us posted. And that's all for the advice section of today's podcast episode. If you want to send me your letters, hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. Send them to me. I love reading them. I love talking them through with you. And, there's no answers. I don't think I really gave an answer in that one. And I hope I definitely think, I'm sure I'm going to think about this and ruminate on it for a long time tonight. It is Monday, July 7th at the time that I'm recording this. And I know I'm doing these live. Like I know I'm going to think about what I said and was I too aggressive in this way? And was I too blank, blank, blank? And the answer, according to me, could always be yes in something. But really, I think there's something really special about unpacking these things together. And my hope, I can never give you an answer. No one can ever give you answers in your life. Anybody who tells you exactly what you should fucking do is a liar. Don't ever trust somebody who gives you like a step-by-step guide or a definitive thing that you must do, especially if they're not asking you questions and like really trying to learn and sit with you in the emotions you're feeling. But I can't tell this person what to do, and I do sort of feel bad about that because I know that sometimes all we want is someone to just like bang us over the head and give us the fucking right answer and look in the crystal ball so we know it's all going to be okay. But we can't do that. But I do really believe in the power of letter writing to each other. And I don't know, I think there's something about kind of reading them in real time and raw and unpacking them more together. And if I think of something else to say by the time this goes live that I didn't say here, I will throw it in the comment section. But there's a couple other things. We're going to switch gears a little bit now because there are some other topics that I have been really wanting to tell you guys all week. Some things that I've been just like itching to tell you about. First is my elbow. My elbow is doing a lot better. For those of you who are unaware, I broke my elbow about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago at this point, which is crazy. I have a podcast episode about that story, elbow story time episode. Give it a listen. And I'm not going to repeat myself about what happened here, but I've been making a lot of good progress. I'm showing in the YouTube video now. I can outstretch my arm. It does right now feel like my arm is doing a split. Yes, like a split with your leg. Is the video getting all fuzzy? Yeah, I got all fuzzy for a second, but I'm back. If you've ever done splits with your leg when you are not perfectly flexible, you'll know that feeling that I'm describing. It's a really weird sensation because it doesn't feel like a break anymore. It just feels like the muscle is really, really tight. And I'm having all these interesting. One thing that the broken elbow has taught me is like you are so unaware of how your body works and how all of the different pieces of the body are connected. Like I didn't realize the intricate ways that the wrist like turns, and when you're bringing a piece of food to your mouth, your wrist is turning. And why should that matter? I broke my elbow, not my wrist. Well, like the elbow bone is sort of connected to the wrist. So the rotation of the wrist, like I haven't been able to do that up until recently. Anyway, that isn't exactly what I wanted to tell you. What I wanted to talk about with the fucking elbow break is how, there are sometimes things in life that happen that kind of trigger a relapse. And like relapse, yes, is an addiction term, but I think that the word relapse, we can also apply it to like any painful or destructive behavior, painful time in our life or destructive behavior, heartbreak. Sometimes it feels like life is a series of like going from one hard thing to the next. That thought struck me kind of recently, which was sort of a depressing thought. And I tried to reframe that because it's not actually true. I think in hard moments, it feels like, God, I'm just going from one painful thing that I'm going to have to learn how to heal from and learn how to live with. And then I finally figure it out. And then something new fucking happens. And is this what life is? But that's kind of a negative way to look at it. And it isn't actually true because you could say the same thing about beautiful moments, that life is just one beautiful moment to the next. And in between them are hard moments. But this elbow break I actually probably fucking was. I was going to say I wasn't expecting this to happen. But I think the moment that I broke the elbow, within the first couple of days, I realized this is going to be very challenging for me emotionally. And it was very challenging emotionally. My voice is shaking even thinking about it. Within a couple of days, I was like, whoa, baby, this feels very similar to depression. And it's funny, people would text me and ask like, how's the elbow doing? How are you doing? And within a week, I think my response shifted from being about the physical pain, because there's sort of an easy answer right away, which is just like, it's excruciatingly painful. I'm on pain meds. Haha, like watching TV, like, thanks for checking in. The truthful answer evolved into like, I'm doing better. I'm going to be okay. But emotionally, this is very challenging. It's actually like been more challenging emotionally than it has been physically. And physically, it was quite challenging. Like not having access to one of your arms for a few weeks is really hard. But emotionally, there was a moment when I was sort of sitting on the couch and I was like thinking about what fucking TV show to watch. And I was kind of just staring into the space in front of me, and like my eyes couldn't really focus on anything, and my brain was just sort of blotto. And I sort of felt very hopeless and like nothing mattered. And it sort of struck me like, oh my God, the last time I felt this exact way was when I was very depressed. And it scared me because I spend a lot of energy like being scared of falling into that void. And I think that's a really honest thing to say. Some of the coping mechanisms I have to, prevent myself from falling into like a void are healthy and good and part of what it means to live a meaningful, happy life. Some of it is just trust that I can feel hard things and not, plummet into despair. Sometimes it also, though, means that I need to like sit and feel my feelings. And that's something that I'm working on. But in that moment on the couch, I was like, fuck, please do not let this happen again. Like, do not let this injury push me so deep into despair that I'm out for months. And it hasn't. I'm really proud of like how I've dealt with this month. But there were scary moments. There were scary moments that I was like, is this going to be a thing that I can't recover from? Because for me, and if anyone listening has dealt with depression or grief or heartbreak, anything like just beyond the normal way, like any of these things where it becomes so consuming that you can't function, there is something there's like this toxic, freeing feeling of when you are so down bad that you can't do anything because you're so down bad that you almost, nothing feels like it's going to work. And you're almost, I want to try to describe this right. It's like things are so fucked up right now that I don't even have the space or time to think about how it's going to be better. So it's actually quite comfortable. It's very comfortable when you're in that real, real low because there are no expectations of trying to get out of it. And once you have the expectations of trying to get out of it, that's when it can feel really hard and challenging because that requires hard work. Like it is hard work to pull yourself out of a depressive episode or of the deep, deep layers, the immobilizing moments of grief. Like it's fucking hard. And there were some moments in that first week with the elbow break and even in the second week where it kind of felt like that. Like, wow, my elbow's broken. No one expects anything of me. I have a good excuse to not expect anything of me. Let's just stay here. This feels kind of nice. It's kind of a nice break. And it could be a nice break if I could allow it to be a nice break and not kind of succumb to all of the shame that's associated with being down bad like that. And I was scared. I was really scared. But that stuff didn't happen. Or there were moments of it. There were moments of that despair that I talk about, but I was able to kind of climb out of them faster. They didn't last as long. And I think really what that was is like hope, I guess, which is so fucking corny. Hope and trust. Hope and trust are the things I've been working on the most over the last 2 years in therapy and in my personal writing, I guess, and conversations with friends, like the trust that I will be able to get through it and I'm going to be okay. It's not quite trust that I'm like I don't know if I've quite built up the trust that like I'm going to achieve everything I want and feel everything I want, which is a trust that I'm trying to get back to. I'm not quite there yet, but this is all a really long-winded way of saying like, it was very emotionally challenging, but a thing a friend said that I wanted to pose to you, a friend asked me a really great question. I was telling her that I didn't want to feel disappointed at the end of this, at the end of, let's say it would be a month until I could write again or a month until I could do any good, meaningful kind of typing work. And my writing work and is really where I feel most proud of myself. And like I make the most progress towards my goals when I can do that. I said, I really just don't want to like be at the end of this elbow break and like just feel more disappointed in myself than I already feel. I don't want this to push me further into disappointment. And she said, well, let's think about it. What would make you feel really disappointed? Imagine yourself healed from this injury and looking back, what would make you feel disappointed? And I said, I had to think about it for a second, but I think I said something like, I would feel really disappointed if I spent all this time when I was physically unable to work. I'd be really disappointed if I spent all that time shaming myself for not being able to work. Like, that would be a huge fucking bummer. If I spent that whole time just making myself feel bad about it and telling myself these horror stories about how this was going to further sabotage everything I want, going to sabotage my career, going to sabotage my relationships because I'm not going to be able to recover from on how unhappy I am, that would make me feel really disappointed. And then she's like, well, what would make you feel proud? And I said it would make me feel proud if I could be gentle with myself and if I could enjoy this time to read on my Kindle. Maybe enjoy the time watching TV. Use my mind in other ways other than writing. Just because I can't write doesn't mean I can't think. And are there ways that I can try to make progress on the things that excite me? Like, be creatively out of the box. I don't know. This painting that I'm looking at of my dog Francis that I painted, it says abolish ICE. I called it paw testing. I am feeling really hopeless about the state of our world, which doesn't even feel like a all-encompassing enough term to describe exactly just like the tragedy and atrocity that is happening everywhere. But I was feeling helpless because of ICE raids in my city in Los Angeles. I was feeling helpless with myself and my lack of work. So I painted a picture of Francis protesting with my left hand, which is an exercise that I used to do in art school all the time. They would always make us use our left hand instead of our dominant one. Some people, that would be the right hand, of course. And that made me feel like really good and creative and capable. And it reminded me, I don't know, I guess just what I'm capable of when I am being kind to myself. So I wanted to pose that question back to you because I think it changed the trajectory of my emotional and physical healing probably during this elbow process. Like, if there's something that you're struggling with in your life right now, if there's a hardship you're facing, first know that you're going to get through it. And there will be a point when you are not in the throes in the way you are right now. But I want you to imagine yourself at the other end of it. What would make you disappointed if you looked back? Or why am I having a hard time saying this question? What would make you feel disappointed? That's simple enough. Would you feel disappointed if you spent the whole time beating yourself with a baton? You probably fucking would. But what would make you feel proud of yourself? And could you do more of that? I thought it was a really great question. And yeah, I wanted to pose it to you. Ever since it happened, I was like, I can't wait to tell them about it. So now I've told you about it. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and we're totally switching gears here, and then I promise I'll let you go, is about breakfast. I've been thinking about breakfast a lot lately. For context, I'm a 3 meals a day plus snacks girl. Like, I don't like skipping meals. I don't skip meals. I do sometimes eat meals at odd hours of the day, which is what is informing this breakfast conversation. So without getting too TMI, I've been having some stomach digestive issues over the last several years. None so serious that I've really looked into them, but I bring it up at the doctor every year, a doctor which I'm going back. I'm going to this doctor on Thursday and I'm fucking dreading it. I have not had good experiences at this doctor. But I need to go to the doctor, and the process of finding a new doctor is just so brutal, and the wait lists are so long. And since I'd already been to this one, I'm just going again. Truthfully, I'm nervous because I don't weigh myself, and I always get nervous before knowing that I'm going to have to get on the scale, and I always tell the doctor or the nurse, please don't show me the number, please don't show me the number. And typically that goes well, but once a couple of years ago, they then literally handed me a piece of paper directly after with how much I weighed, which was very frustrating. I dealt with it fine, but it really frustrated me after going 10 years of not knowing my weight. Anyway, I felt like they kind of took that away from me. In the blink of an eye, this thing that I felt really proud of, not knowing how much I weigh, they just made me fucking look at it without giving me any heads up. In some ways, I suppose that is good exposure. These things do happen, and I was fine. But I do feel anxiety anytime I go to the doctor around this. And I actually have since learned that I don't need to be weighed at all. So when I go tomorrow, or I go on Thursday, if they ask me to get on the scale, I can just say, I would prefer not to be weighed. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm going to the doctor Thursday, and I've brought up these stomach digestive issues, and no one's really been that helpful. And I'm realizing it is on me to pursue these things, to make doctors listen to me, which is fucked up, but that is the truth. But I have been trying to take some matters into my own hands to figure out what these digestive issues could be. And one thing that's become abundantly clear is that it's not good to drink coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. But I love drinking coffee first thing in the morning. And I wake up early enough. I wake up just after 6 a.m. where I really do not want to eat breakfast that early. My typical routine would be getting up, maybe having a sip or two of water because Brian forces me, and I try to have a sip or two of water, and then I make coffee, and I'm probably drinking a lot of coffee until, let's say, 7:30, maybe an hour and a half into waking up, and after having my coffee, then I'm ready for breakfast, and then I will make breakfast. But that has been destroying my stomach, I think, or at least been contributing to destroying my stomach. So I've been trying to find, just having a little something, not a full breakfast, but just a little bit of something to coat my stomach almost before I have the coffee. And it's hard coming up with things that you can stomach at 6 a.m. Maybe it's not hard for you. Maybe you're somebody at 6 a.m. who could eat lox on a bagel. I actually love lox. I love lox. And maybe I could be somebody who eats lox on a bagel at 6 a.m. But right now, I'm like, what's the most basic thing I can think of? English muffin with almond butter. Did someone just come in my door? I just heard somebody bang on my door, and either that was Brian rudely interrupting the podcast or Francis trying to storm in. English muffin toasted with almond butter. A little bit of yogurt. Hard-boiled egg. I don't know. But my question for you guys is, what are the things that you're eating for breakfast? The current thing I love, and why I wanted to tell you about this, is I found this granola. It's called, what is it? I meant to actually bring the bag in here, but then I forgot, and I think Francis is out there, so I'm not going to go grab it. Magic Spoon protein granola. I've been doing the peanut butter flavor, and I have my Greek yogurt. I do a little bit of that granola, a couple of berries if I have some berries available, some ground flax, and I eat that. I don't have a normal breakfast size portion. I'll end up having another breakfast an hour later. It's just a little bit, because I really can't stomach too much. It's just a little bit before I start drinking my coffee. But this granola is maybe I actually might be able to eat the full size breakfast at that time because of how good the granola is. It's a protein granola, low in sugar, which isn't something I really pay attention to, but in trying to figure out my stomach stuff, I know having more protein in the morning is good for energy, so I was looking specifically for a granola that has lots of protein in it, and I really like this one. I'm very picky about granola because I feel like a lot of them are just dessert, which is fabulous. Love granola as dessert, but maybe granola as dessert isn't the best thing, the most nutritious thing for me to eat. I shouldn't say best, the most optimal thing for my 6 a.m. coffee writing work that I need to do in the morning and my productivity. I don't know, but I'm curious what you guys eat. Anybody else who's getting up early, anybody else who's a picky eater in the morning. I'm not even picky, but I don't know. If you got to eat something good and nutritious and hearty, what are the nice coatings that you guys are doing? Please give me some good breakfast recommendations, because hard-boiled egg, English muffin with almond butter, peanut butter, yogurt, it's getting old very quickly. And I don't want to have to think about what I eat in the morning, I just want to enjoy it. It's got to be something enjoyable is the other thing. It is crazy how eating something that I don't find enjoyable, can really piss me the fuck off. I really take it really can swing my mood. If I have a dinner, for example, that wasn't a satisfying dinner, really can kind of ruin my vibe and ruin the night. I spend a lot of time thinking about what meals are going to be the most satisfying and enjoyable, which actually is a totally fine way to live, I think. Anybody who's, spends their time thinking about their next meal and what it's going to be will hopefully relate to that. Anyway, I've been talking a lot. I feel like this last section of the episode is when you leave dinner with your friend and you both are hovering by the subway station and you don't want the night to end and you just continue standing there, and then somebody brings up kind of a major topic, but you kind of both need to leave, but you don't want to leave, and you end up talking for another 25 minutes about whatever the thing is. I feel like that's this part of the episode. I'm saying the subway, your car, wherever you live, the T, whatever the mode of transportation is that you get home from dinner with your friends. Maybe we can call it something like that. If that moment in the night with friends had a name, what would it be? Anyway, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you liked today's episode. If you did, we have new episodes of Hello Haze every Tuesday. Please leave a review. If you haven't yet, those reviews apparently are really helpful. Doesn't matter how many you have, more matters how frequently they're being made. And that's about the only thing I'll ask you to do. I love you. I'll see you next week. Bye.